going to help us out too, so you can ask either one of us if you can't hear or if you have any challenges with that. We're going to be talking today about managing negative chatter in the workplace. And this is one of my favorite topics because everybody can relate to negativity at work, difficult people at work, and we're going to be talking about a few different solutions. We're going to start out talking really about what is negative chatter. We're going to be discussing some scripting and other communication tools. We're going to be talking about how to assess our environment, which is something that we should be doing frequently, and taking action. And then, of course, as most of you know, the most difficult part of really making a change, if you're experiencing negative chatter, and even if you're just experiencing a little negative chatter, to eliminate that and make a change where that's going to stay gone from the workplace, really, that's the difficult part, is maintaining the momentum. So we'll be talking about that. And then, of course, my favorite part, our question and answer session at the end. So with all that great stuff, let's get started. One thing that you may want to do, if you should be able to print out these materials, by the way, and whether or not you've already printed them out, it's okay. You can print them out later, but I recommend that everybody keep a start, stop, and continue list. If you know me, you know that I like to be very specific with my communication strategies, and I like to spell things out in a step-by-step way. And keeping a start, stop, continue list is a great way to kind of keep tabs. During this next hour and a half that we'll have together, if you hear some things that you think you are not doing in the work environment you're at, and you want to do them, put those in the start column. If you hear some things where you think, yeah, maybe that's something that we could eliminate that we might be doing in our department, put that in the stop column. And if you have things that you hear about today that you think, yeah, we are doing that and it's working well for us, put that in the continue column. Sometimes what we may have a tendency to do is dismiss the things that we hear that we're already doing and not really give it the importance that we should, thinking, okay, let's keep that on our continue list. And then what might happen in the future is we kind of stop doing them because we never really focused on them to begin with. So keeping a start, stop, continue list is a great way to get the most out of today's training. By the way, I forgot to tell you, those of you who follow me online, make sure to check out my YouTube channel. If you haven't yet, just go to YouTube and look up Dan O'Connor Training or Communication Skills. You'll find me. You'll notice that Buddy makes quite a few cameo appearances in our videos. Buddy, my dog, Buddy the dog. And Buddy's not here today. However, Maggie May will be joining us. And so if she feels like coming up and saying hello, we have a new member to the Dan O'Connor Training cast, and it is Maggie, the Wonder Dog. So she'll be making an appearance today as well. I'll make sure that those of you who have asked me, can I take a look at Maggie? Because some of you have asked, I'll make sure that you get to see her here today. And another list that I always recommend you keep for any communication development process is a danger phrase and a power phrase list. And a danger phrase and power phrase list is the number one tool that I have found to be most useful in my communication development. It is absolutely invaluable. The danger phrases are going to be phrases that I may point out today and say, hey, if you do say that, that's a danger phrase. A lot of times they just come while I'm talking, while we're having this conversation. I might think of a danger phrase and give it to you. I might think of a power phrase, and we'll point that one out as well. And danger phrases are phrases that, of course, we want to purge from our verbal repertoire. Sometimes we have specific danger phrases that we purge at work. For example, a couple of danger phrases are, let me ask you this. What is the number one danger phrase that we say to difficult people when they are out of control emotionally and we want them to calm down? What, for example, a novice. Now, if you've been with me for a while, you don't say this, but what does a novice communicator say to a difficult person when they are emotionally out of control at work? Let's say we're dealing with a crybaby. Because remember, if you know me, you know I like to name the different difficult people that we deal with so that we know who we're dealing with and can think, okay, wait, what's the strategy for the crybaby? What's the strategy for the exploder? What's the strategy for the tank, the know-it-all, the negaholic, the judge? There are different strategies for different people. And, for example, if somebody's out of control emotionally and you want them to calm down, what's the worst thing you can say to them? Calm down, right? But we say it anyway, and that would be a great example of a danger phrase, because no one in the history of the world has ever heard the phrase calm down and then said, ah, Oh my gosh, why didn't I think of that? Thank you so much. I feel such a wave of tranquility, right? No one ever does that. So that's an example of a danger phrase. And then a power phrase would be, for example, what we should be saying in these situations. For example, if we're dealing with a difficult person, let's go back to the crybaby. If somebody is emotionally out of control and they're crying, by the way, people cry and they're not necessarily labeled the crybaby. A crybaby at work is somebody who, when you bring something to their attention and you are asking, let's say, for a change in behavior, they use crying as a defense mechanism to try and distract from the real issue at hand. That's the crybaby, not somebody who had some tragic event happen in their life and they're emotionally drained and they're crying. That's normal. The crybaby is somebody who specifically uses crying as a tool to try and avoid any type of confrontation. So what are we supposed to say to the crybaby, or to anybody who really is emotionally out of control? The phrases that we're supposed to be using are things such as, you know how we're supposed to validate their emotions? That theoretically, and I'm not big on theory, I'm big on tactics, theoretically we are supposed to let someone know who's emotionally out of control that we feel their pain, that we understand how emotionally upset they are, that we're listening to them, that we get it. And those are nice theories, but power phrases help me put those theories into practice. And using starter phrases or lead-in lines such as, I understand, I can see. For example, I understand how upset you must be. I can see this is really difficult for you. I can see how upset you are. Those are the types of phrases we should be using. Not, by the way, the danger phrase, oh, I know just how you feel. Because what do people think or say when we tell them that we know just how they feel? Right? They, no, you don't. That's a danger phrase. Instead, I can understand why you'd feel that way. I can understand why you'd be so upset. That changes, for example, the phrase, I know how you feel. When we instead say, I can understand why you'd feel that way, that changes it from, oh, I am relating to you and I have the same emotion and I feel your pain, to I can comprehend the chain of events that have led you to feel the way that you currently feel. And that's an entirely different message, right? So those types of things, to think through our verbal patterns as we're saying them in emotionally charged situations is almost impossible, because by nature of being emotionally charged, when we're dealing with difficult people, whether they are chronic complainers, whether they are the addicted to negativity, maybe they're the judge, maybe they're the constant critic, whoever these people are, maybe they're the gossip, the backstabber, when we deal with them, we can't help but become emotionally involved. We can't help it. Our brain chemistry changes, and we all of a sudden start to lose our words. You know what I'm talking about. And the reason we start to lose our words is because the part of the brain, the emotional side of the brain, becomes activated. And that's been programmed in us for thousands of years. When somebody starts to push our buttons, the emotional side of the brain gets activated and starts to drag us out of the logical side of the brain where language lives, because you can only really access one side of the brain at one time. When you're accessing one side of the brain, you're drawn out of the other. So when we become emotionally charged, we can't find our words because we're drawn out of the logical side of the brain where words are, and we start to become crazy because we all of a sudden have these drugs floating in our brain, and we say and do crazy things. We might participate in gossip. We might participate in backstabbing. We might participate in this difficult behavior simply because we haven't prepared in advance for those types of events, which is what we're doing here today. When you keep a danger phrase and a power phrase list, here's my suggestion. Keep that list handy all the time, especially since today, hopefully what you're doing is starting kind of a renaissance, and you're starting maybe a cleansing in your department, maybe your home, and you say, today I'm going to start making a change. One of the simplest things and most effective things you can do is keep this danger phrase and power phrase list. When someone or you says something where you think, I don't think that's going to get you the result you wanted to get, or I don't think that's going to get you the reaction that you intended to elicit in someone else. I don't think that's working for you. That can go on your danger phrase list. Your power phrase list is what should we be saying instead? For example, at work, many of us say, I have an idea how we could end negativity. I have an idea how we could make things better around here. Put idea on your danger phrase list. Nobody wants to hear your ideas. They just don't. We've all heard people with a lot of ideas, a lot of crummy ideas at work. Nobody wants your ideas. When someone has a problem or a challenge, what do they want? They want solutions, answers, maybe simply proposals. So on your power phrase list, after you write the word idea on the danger phrase side, on the power phrase side, write proposal, solution, answer, because look at how it changes the message. If I were to say, you know, I know we've been dealing with a lot of negativity here at work, and I believe I have an answer that could work for us. Isn't that different from, I have an idea that might work for us? I mean, right? It's totally different. Or, I've come up with a few different proposals that I think we should check out. Isn't that different from, well, I think we should listen to my idea? Totally different. So when we change our verbal patterns, we change the reactions that we get from other people. And when we know we're using the right patterns, we can be much more confident in our communication. Because today we're going to be talking about, what do we say when someone starts gossiping? What do we say when somebody judges us? What do we say when we're dealing with difficult people? That's the most difficult part for most people, is really, like, we know theoretically what we should be doing. You know, I know I should be not participating in gossip. I know I should be not encouraging difficult behavior. But when the moment comes, it's difficult to find the right words, right? So we're going to bridge the gap today between knowing what we should be doing and actually having the words to do it. And if you keep lists, and we're going to be talking about verbal patterns and phrases, when you keep those handy and reference them and practice using power phrases, practice using freestyle scripts, what will happen is when it comes time that you need them, you'll be much, much more likely to find the right words at the right time because you practiced them in advance. And even though the logical side of your brain, where these words live, is being kind of deactivated by these emotional or difficult or negative people, it's going to be much easier for you to find the right words. So practice is key. And let's clarify for a moment what type of negative chatter we're talking about. Gossip, of course. If we're talking about somebody that's not in the room, and we wouldn't say it if they were in the room, that's going to be gossip, right? Backstabbing, we all know what backstabbing is, same thing. Complaining, negativity, that's all great as a label. We can label all of that as negative chatter. That's obviously something we do not want in the workplace. Any type of gossip is unacceptable. Any type of backstabbing is unacceptable. Complaining is unacceptable because that's very different from, I've noticed a challenge and I've come up with a solution. Remember this one key. Any time you bring a challenge to your boss or your coworkers or your supervisor, any time that I'm bringing a problem that I'm recognizing at work to somebody, at that same moment, I must present a proposal, a solution to that problem. Otherwise, I will be seen as simply complaining. Nobody wants to hear about problems at work. We've got enough problems, especially our supervisors. Everybody wants someone around them who is constantly bringing solutions to the problems that they see, constantly bringing answers to the challenges that arise at work. And so if you might actually have been labeled a constant complainer, for example. And constant complainers, if you work with one, they're absolutely crucial to the success of my team, because people who are chronic complainers, not just occasional complainers, but chronic complainers who are always seeing things that they don't like, generally are emotionally invested in where they work. They care. That's why they're looking for things to complain about. And if we can transform the constant complainers into the solution people who bring solutions, then you want them around. Hey, I noticed this challenge and I've come up with a solution. What we all have to do at work is get on board with simple rules of communication. And one of the rules is the moment you verbalize a challenge or a problem that you see at work is the same moment where you must also present an answer or a solution or a proposal for that problem. And then all of a sudden I transform from a complainer to a solution person. So that's one thing that we can all do immediately to stop complaining. It's great to find things that aren't working right and bring the solution at the same time. We'll talk about negativity today as well. And we have to be clear that negative chatter at work isn't honest communication. You know, if I am, for example, transforming now, if I am bringing up something that I see that's not working for our team, whether it's personality conflicts or whatever, and I'm clearly and directly communicating that to the people who need to hear it, using, let's say, the tools that we'll be talking about today, that's not negative chatter. That's problem solving as long as I form it correctly, as long as I use the right words, as long as I say it the right way, use the correct syntax, so to speak. So we're going to be talking about how to do that. And negative chatter, of course, is not constructive. Anytime that I'm saying something that's not contributing to the success of my team and my department and my organization, that's going to be not acceptable. That's going to be considered negative chatter. But again, if I'm productive, then that's not necessarily negative. We all know that, for example, if I have to sit down and tell an employee that their behavior has been unacceptable and I need a correction in their behavior, they might think, my boss is a nag and they're no fun and they're just a big old, what do you call it? They're a party pooper. That might be the way they see it. However, if my communication is constructed in a productive way, that's not, of course, negative chatter. One thing that we do have to address is July 30th, 2012, the NLRB, they made a decision, basically. There was an employee who was going online on Facebook, I believe it was, and they were texting about, or posting messages about their work and how much they hated it and whatnot. And that employee got in trouble at work, and the NLRB came back and said, you can't do that. So just so we all know, our employees, our teammates can say legally whatever they want on Twitter, on Facebook, on the internet, and we cannot, basically, I'm just giving you the basics of it, we can't do anything about it. We're not supposed to be looking at that as long as it's not during work time. I mean, they can go during break time and they can go after work and say whatever they want about work, and basically we can't do a whole lot about it. So just for a human resources perspective, any type of negative chatter that's not at work, basically, is basically off limits for us to address at work. And one of the most important things that we all want to do is this. Remember that visual cues are key. I'm going to repeat that because it's super important. Visual cues are key. Remember that, in this day and age, as we all know, we are tweeting things with pictures more. Pinterest is the number one growing social media site. When you post things on Facebook, your engagement skyrockets when you post a picture because we are visual communicators. Remember that we have evolved communicating visually. We have, human beings evolved to communicate visually more than any other way. In fact, when we're communicating face-to-face, over half of our communication in any situation is going to be visual. We are visual communicators. And we can say as many things as we want to say about we're a positive work environment, we're all on board, we have a great attitude. If I were to walk into your work area right now, if I were to walk into your department, I'd like you to ask yourself, how would Dan O'Connor know that we are positive and we are proactive in our fight against negativity? Because it's a fight all of us fight. How would I know that you are currently combating negativity? If I were standing in your work area right now looking around, would I know that? Because if you can't look around your environment right now and see signs that you are dedicated to positive communication, to growth, to production, that's a challenge because we are visual communicators, and we should be able to look around at any moment of the day and be reminded of who we are, why we're here, and what we want. If you have not yet made a communication compass, it is critical that you do. You cannot go to step 2 without doing this. So I'm going to cover the basics quickly. What you want to do is take some time with your team members. You do not need permission from management or your bosses or your supervisors or anyone else to do this. I know that most of us who are dealing with if you're dealing with a lot of negativity or negative chatter at work, most people will say, well, it all starts at management. And yes, it does. It all starts at the top. It is nearly an impossibility that we will treat each other better than management treats us, just as it's an impossibility that we will treat our customers better than our managers treat us, right? However, if you have decided in your department, well, you know what, I'm making a change, and it's irrelevant to me what management says, what those other people say over there, what coworkers say. It doesn't matter to me what my employees say. In this department right here, I have dominion. That's what you need to decide. And you need to sit down with your teammates, and you are the one, by the way, whoever's listening to this, you are the one who sets the tone in your department. That's you. Remember that you are in charge of every relationship in your life, and it's all one big relationship. So if you are experiencing a lot of negativity, whether it's coming from other people or not, that's for you to change. And one great way to take charge and say, you know what, I am in charge of this relationship I have with my coworkers, with my customers, with my bosses, is to have, let's say, a lunch and learn, where you sit down during that lunch and learn and you make a communication compass, both personally and for your team members. What you want to do is simply answer 3 questions. Question number 1, who are we? So you want to simply use the lead-in line or starter phrase, we are, and then you fill in the blank. Or you can do it personally. I am, and then you fill in the blank. For example, if you have to say, who are you as a group, use adjectives. Not, for example, we are accountants, we are customer service representatives. No. We are caring, we are thoughtful, we are compassionate. Decide now who you are going to be as a group. Because if you do not, other people will decide that for you. Your customers will decide how you're going to behave. Your bosses will decide how you're going to behave. The negaholics and the backstabbers and the gossips will decide how you are going to behave if you don't. Because either we decide who we are or someone else will decide that for us. That's just the truth, right? So you want to write down as a group who you are and as an individual who you are. Step number 2, you want to decide why you're here. You know, if you think that you're at work to provide support, let's say, to provide people their documentation, to count numbers, to fix problems, you are doomed. If you think that you are there to do whatever your job description says, I'm here to tell you you are not. That's not why you're on the planet. There's much, much more to that. And if I can decide why I'm here, you know, why am I really here? It's not to answer somebody's question about their account. It's not to tell somebody what their balance is in their bill and make payment arrangements for them, or to send them a file. I'm here to serve, I'm here to help, I'm here to solve problems, I'm here to represent not just the best of my company, I'm here to represent the best of me. I'm here to show you what greatness looks like, every single person. And if I can decide as an individual, and then we decide as a team why we're here, just fill in the blank. We're here to. Fill in that sentence. And then do one for yourself. I'm here to. Fill in that sentence. Because remember, the number 1, this is a biggie. Listen to this one. The number 1 thing that you can do to get buy-in to your change at work, if you're making a change today, the number 1 thing you can get buy-in, or the number 1 thing that helps you get buy-in for your ideas, for your movements, for your policies, for your procedures, things such as we're doing here today, the number 1 thing is to make those around you feel as though they are part of the process and that their voice was heard during the process. Now get this. Even if their proposals were totally disregarded. So at work, for example, if you have to have some type of policy change and you know what the policy change is going to be and there's nothing that anybody can do about it, simply letting people know, hey, there's going to be a policy change here. I'd like to hear your thoughts, your ideas, your suggestions, your proposals. Even if not a single suggestion or proposal or concern was addressed, the process of listening to people and getting their input during that decision-making process is the number 1 thing that you can do to get people's buy-in for that change and get people to accept it. So here's a challenge we all face. Most of us come into work and we have a organizational mission statement. And if I asked you right now what your mission statement is at work, could you tell me what it is? Could you? I bet you could. And that's a challenge. Someone else is telling us who to be. Someone else is writing it for us. Instead, if we as a group, even if it's just your friends at work, sit down and decide what's your personal compass, then people actually buy into it. And we're getting to how we're going to use this now. Because you also want to say, what do you want? You know? For example, I want financial independence. I want peace and harmony in my life. I want positive energy. What do you want? What do you want as a group, and what do you want as an individual? Most of us can't answer that question. If you say, what do you want right now in life? And I have to remember that airplanes, are off course 99% of the time. But they keep getting back on course. They're constantly adjusting in midair because they know what their destination is supposed to be in the end. They know where they're eventually supposed to be going. So even though they're off track almost all the time, just as I'm off track most of the time, I know what my communication goal may be. But people hold me to a high standard many times because this is my job, to teach communication training, because I'm constantly learning about it and investing my time and money in it, because it's something that I struggle with, like everybody, and I have found so many great tools that help me. I'd like to share those. And when I know that I'm off track most of the time when I'm communicating, I know that, but I know what my goal is. And you can be off track a lot of the time as long as you're constantly readjusting. But here's the challenge. There's a sliver in time between event and response. There is a sliver in time between when an event happens and how we respond to it. A difficult person says something, they gossip, they backstab, they say something negative, and how we respond to that. There is a sliver in time. During that sliver in time, our brain starts to process and make connections and think, how did I deal with this in the past? And it goes back to that. What are the tools that I have to deal with with this? They use those. If I can invest things and say, hey, wait a minute, I'm going to tell myself what my goal is. We are constantly making decisions that bring us either towards or farther away from our goals. And if we can write down who we are, why we're here, and what we want, we can actually have a direction in which to go. We can start correcting ourselves more often, because here's what you want to do. Once you write your personal compass, keep that handy where you can see it, but your group personal compass, who you are, why you're there, and what you want as a group, you need to slap that everywhere. Everywhere you possibly can on the wall, so that you can not only be visually reminded, but you can remind other people. Because many of us have difficulty finding our voice in difficult situations. Many of us are more passive communicators. And if you're a passive communicator, give yourself permission to be that. That's okay, especially if that works for you. Some of us are more passive by nature. Some of us are more aggressive by nature, just like dogs. I have to tell you, so Maggie May, I'm going to show you Maggie May. Hold on. Hey, Maggie. Oh. Okay. So this is Maggie May, and she is a super passive dog. She just kind of wants to sit around and be hugged and be loved, and she always lets Buddy eat her food first, and she doesn't mind that, and she doesn't stare me down because she's passive by nature. And she's a good dog. And if you're passive by nature, that's a good thing. But you want to learn what tools can work for you so that you can get your needs met anyway. So one of the simplest tools that we can use is a personal compass, because we can use it as what's called a signal. So remember that word, a signal. When somebody starts engaging in communication that isn't appropriate, or that you've agreed now as a group to avoid, you don't have to say anything. You can all agree, for example, during your lunch and learn, because it only takes 20 minutes to make one of these, and you can always make it better later. Just make one. It takes 20 minutes. And then you decide, can we all agree here that if we notice that any one of us starts engaging in this behavior, we don't even need to bring it up or make a big deal out of it. We can just say, hey, Dan, and point to the personal compass on the wall, because there always has to be one visible. Point to the personal compass. Point to the one on our chest. Some people wear it as a badge on their chest. But all you have to do is, instead of bringing it up if you have trouble finding the words, just look at it, point to it, and you can even say something such as, I don't think that's what we agreed to in our personal compass, or is that in line with our personal compass? And then it's easy, even for passive communicators, to confront. I actually want to say address. I apologize. Confront. Write that down in your danger phrase list. Confront. Write that down. We never want to confront people at work. Confrontations automatically assume negativity and a problem. We can address behavior without being confrontational. So if I want to address difficult behavior at work, it's very simple if we can simply point to a personal compass and say something such as, hey, Dan, personal compass. Hey, Dan, remember when we made our personal compass? Hey, I don't think that's in line with our personal compass. And it's one of the simplest tools that we can all use. But you need visual cues, and we need signals. So we need to all establish very simple signals that we can use with one another when we start seeing each other engage in this behavior. And what you want to do is sit down, even if it's a one-on-one conversation. If you notice that somebody else is engaging in a lot of backstabbing or gossip or whatever it is, we're going to talk about scripting today. And remember that you are in charge of every relationship in your life, and you can sit down with somebody and say, let's say that I'm talking to Marty, and he's the constant complainer. I could say to Marty, I need your help. And remember that lead-in line. I need your help. Say that out loud after me if you're watching this. I need your help. Say that again. I need your help. One of the most effective starter phrases for addressing negative behavior in other people is, I need your help. And so I could say, Marty, I need your help. I'm really trying to stop being negative myself, or stop complaining, or stop gossiping, or stop backstabbing. And I know that it's a difficult habit to break, so we've all agreed that we're going to keep an eye on one another. If you see me engaging in that behavior, you don't even need to say anything. Just use the signal that we agreed on. Point to the personal compass, and I'll know to stop, okay? Or, go like this with your nose, or say banana split. Literally, that could be a great signal, is you say to somebody, ooh, I suddenly have an urge for banana split. If you all decide that your signal word is banana split, and you notice that somebody's engaging in behavior, and you don't, let's say, want to drag other people who aren't in on the change that you're making into this, use your signal. Signals are super effective and super easy, especially for passive communicators. And remember, too, my sister-in-law, Michelle, she's a more aggressive communicator, and she has no problem telling exactly what's on her mind. No problem at all. And some people are too aggressive by nature. If you don't want to be seen as aggressive, and you, instead of speaking your mind when it comes time to, have all decided and agreed upon a signal, it just makes it very easy for everybody to be on the same page. I think a lot of you know that I am a big believer in dog clickers at work. We're going to talk about that later. You could all be assigned dog clickers, those things that go click, 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 click. I have one around here, but I'm not going to go grab it. And when you click it, it makes a big clicking noise. You could all decide that if you see behavior that's not acceptable, you just give your dog clicker a click. That's the signal. And a complete communication compass looks like the one I have here. It's, for example, we are a thoughtful, caring, compassionate professional claims department. We're here to serve, to help, to clarify, to solve problems, to represent the best of Acme. We want to encourage positive communication, to exceed customer expectations, both internal and external, to enrich our customers' and coworkers' lives, to create a positive impression with every customer and coworker. If something like that, copy that if you want to, that's fine. If something like that, just change a few words, make it your own. Slap that all around your office, you're done. Now that you're done with step number 1, then you can go to step number 2 and start practicing, especially as a group, verbal strategies. So, of course, the difference, I just wanted to clarify, the difference between assertive and aggressive communication is assertive communicators get their needs met. Passive communicators don't really get their needs met. They let other people stomp all over them. Aggressive communicators stomp on the rights of others while they're getting their own needs met. And passive-aggressive, by the way, they punish you, but they're not upfront about it. Like, let's say that if you're a passive-aggressive communicator, if you know one, they're the type of person who will, you'll suffer, but they're just not going to be upfront about it. For example, they might give you the silent treatment. Ooh, passive-aggressive. If you're a boss and you do something like, have you ever sat down at your computer and there's a little yellow Post-it note on it with 3 danger phrase words? What are the 3 worst words you can see on a Post-it note hanging on your monitor at work? That's right. Come see me. So if you're a boss or a supervisor and you've ever left a come see me note, don't ever do that again. That's a danger phrase, come see me, because you know that's going to make the person suffer until they come and see you, right? So if I'm making you suffer on purpose, that's passive-aggressive, even if I'm not upfront about it. If I have to remember that my obligation as an assertive communicator is to tell you how to meet my needs, to be upfront and direct with my communication. Going back to my sister-in-law, Michelle, one great strategy that we can all implement. I was at the gym, and I was having a problem with the people at the front desk. They were energy vampires, and whenever I would come to the gym, they would suck 10 minutes from me at the front desk because they thought that I could solve all of their life problems there on my way to go to the elliptical machine. And she said to me something along the lines of, why are you letting them do that to you? Because I was saying to her, sometimes I dread going to the gym. It can be such a drag. She said, well, why? And I said, well, because, they spend so much time, they end up taking so much of my time, and, they end up talking so much that I miss out on some of my workout. And she's like, why do you talk to them at all? And I said, well, I don't want to be rude. And she's like, why is that rude, to completely ignore them and not talk to them at all on your way in or on your way out? And I thought, I said, I'm a human being and I'm polite. And she said, well, I can tell you this. I've never said hello to them or goodbye to them. They don't know a thing about me, and they've never taken a moment of my time. And I noticed that when she goes to the gym, They are invisible to her. She walks in, she walks out. And I noticed one thing. I thought, they don't care at the front desk that she's completely ignoring them as if they're invisible, and she doesn't give it a thought. She has given herself permission to communicate the way that she truly sees fit. Not that she does not. She's not aggressive. She doesn't she can be. She doesn't deliberately try to stomp on the rights of others. If she thought she were doing that, she would stop. But she does not communicate. She does not compromise her communication to make someone else more comfortable if she thinks that the way she's communicating is the right thing to do. She's the master of assertive communication. And we all should be. Let's talk about assertive communication tools. Boundary statements. All right. Are you ready now? When somebody starts crossing the line in communication situations, they're gossiping, they're backstabbing, they're being negative, they're being insulting, whatever they're being, practice saying this out loud. I do want to, say that. I do want to, repeat that again. I do want to, now say this, but not, are you ready? Say it again. But not, say it one more time, but not. So the verbal pattern that I want you to start practicing, when you feel as though somebody's crossing boundaries, they're starting to communicate in an inappropriate way, some way that it does not serve you and you think is wrong, you want to use boundary statements so that you can be an assertive communicator, clear and direct. I do want to, but not, goes like this. This is a boundary statement. I do want to hear all of your ideas, but not if you're not going to offer solutions. I do want to finish discussing this with you, but not if you're going to continue using that language. I do want to hear about the challenges you're facing with Michelle, but not if she's not present in the conversation. I do want to hear everything that you have to say, but not in this manner. So a very simple a duct tape phrase or a duct tape tactic. I call things duct tape sometimes because what do we use duct tape for? Everything. And so a duct tape tactic is something that you can use in a variety of situations. And a simple boundary statement, for example, if you have trouble finding the words, practice saying, I do want to hear everything you have to say, but not in this manner. That can be used in a variety of situations. If you feel as though somebody's communicating inappropriately, you can always tell them, hey, I do want to hear everything you have to say, but not in this manner. Or let's say you're thinking, I know some of you are thinking, what if I don't want to hear everything they have to say? You could say, I do want to solve problems, but not like this. I do want to, but not, is a fantastic template for you to set boundaries with other people. So remember now, we're using things such as our visual cues, our boundary statements. We're going to also, for example, use assertive communication techniques such as the mirror mirror. And the mirror mirror is a communication technique that you would use with a backstabber or someone who's talking about someone else at work. For example, or talking about you, somebody who's being negative and passive-aggressive. I lost my train of thought. Passive-aggressive communicators who are making snide comments, especially to you. They're insulting you, masked in humor. They may be doing it in a public forum, but their insults are not up front. Many times, as a savvy, assertive communicator, what we need to be doing is showing other people what they're really saying, what they're really doing. We need to be a mirror to other people. And the magic mirror is a 3-step process. If somebody were to say something to you like, ugh, I just love working with John, don't you? He's just so positive. Or, something, they might say something to you like, that's a nice outfit you have on. Where are you going tonight? Back to 1987? Or whatever their insult masked in humor may be. Boy, you did a great job today in your presentation. Nice job. Number 1, to backtrack, is to repeat back to somebody what they said. There is nothing more powerful than repeating back to somebody what they just said, because it's holding them accountable for their communication. And it gives us a moment in time to collect our thoughts and pause, because we might not remember what are the other 2 steps. So step number 1, for example, if somebody were to say to me, you did a great job with your presentation today, Dan. Way to go. I might say to them, Marty, when you say that I did a great job in my presentation today and you said, way to go, that's step number 1. Step number 2 is to clarify. I want to reveal to them, say to them what I believe they're really doing. I want to clarify their communication. It sounds to me like you're being sarcastic. Or when you say that John is a great boss to work with, it sounds like you're being a little facetious. Or, it sounds like you're being a little insulting to me. So step number 1, repeat back what they say. You can paraphrase. That's okay. That's called backtracking, by the way, when you repeat back to somebody. Step number 2, you want to clarify it. It sounds like you're being insulting or facetious or sarcastic. And then step number 3, ask them to clarify it. Am I reading that correctly? Am I picking up on your true message? Am I correct? Are you trying to be insulting? So the 3-step process is, number 1, when you say X, Y, Z. Number 2, I'm hearing or I believe or I sense. Number 3, am I correct? Is that what you're doing? Is that what you're trying to say? And in doing that, you're holding people accountable for their communication. Because remember this, what gets rewarded gets repeated. I love to watch these child-rearing shows like Nanny 911, and one of the number 1 rules for raising children is to remember what gets rewarded gets repeated. When you reward behavior, like when I'm training Maggie May, oh, geez, they told me she was trained. She's not. And I'm getting a big lesson in what gets rewarded gets repeated. When you reward positive behavior, it encourages more of that. When you reward negative behavior, it encourages more of that. Now, the saying, what gets punished doesn't get repeated, is not a fact or the truth. Nobody ever says that because punishment is not as effective as rewarding. I want to reward the behavior I'm looking for, and what we are frequently doing is we are rewarding difficult people. We are rewarding backstabbers or gossipers or negaholics or the difficult people in our lives by listening to them, by engaging with them, and what gets rewarded gets repeated. If you have somebody come in and gossip with you once, that's about them. But if you have somebody come in and gossip with you 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, that is about you. I have to remember the first time, that can be about them. But if I notice a pattern of difficult behavior in my life from the same person, a pattern, they keep doing it over and over. One of the most common questions that I get begins with something like this. Dan, what do I do with so-and-so? They're always yada, yada, yada. Every day they yada, yada, yada. They're constantly blah, blah, blah. If you're noticing that somebody is constantly, always, every day, every time, doing something with you, that is about you. Figure out what rewards you're giving out and stop giving them. One of the easiest ways to stop rewarding difficult behavior is to start calling people on their behavior. And the magic mirror is a perfect way to do that because that takes all the fun out of it. Like I'm not engaging. I'm not being difficult because another principle I want you to remember is sometimes we try to combat negativity with more negativity. Somebody says something negative, well, we're going to tell them a thing or two. Somebody gossips, well, we're going to confront them about it because they're gossiping about us, so we're going to give them a piece of our mind. And in physics, it is an impossibility that you can transform negative energy into positive energy with negative energy. It doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen in real-life communication. You can't transform negativity with more negativity. You can't punish it out of people. You can't confront it out of people. I can only be positive and direct in my communication, and that takes all the fun out of it. And that, for example, negaholic, the backstabber, the gossiper, they might still gossip, but they're going to find someone else to do it with because I can't train you how to be. I only can train you how to communicate with me because I train others how to treat me. I train others how to communicate with me. So say that out loud. I train others, say that, how to communicate with me. Say that again. I train others how to communicate with me. Aha. So remember, if you're dealing with a pattern, not an occasional, but a pattern of negativity, backstabbing, gossiping, and things like that in the office, that is about you. And we're going to talk about how you can stop that. The judge, for example. Let's say that somebody is being simply judgmental. For example, let's say we all have judges, the judge at work, where they're going around saying, oh, that was a stupid idea. Oh, did you see her outfit? Oh, so-and-so thinks they're so smart. Did you see that report they turned in? Did you see the results of their job? Somebody who's the judge is always judging other people at work. And they're usually negative about it, of course. It's very rare that we have a judge that's saying, oh, did you see that wonderful XYZ, and that's a problem. That's not a problem. If you have a judge at work, there is a wonderful two-step process to use with the judge that will stop that behavior while you maintain your direct, assertive stance. Are you ready? Number one, when somebody makes a judgment, like let's say that they were to say, did you see Mary's presentation today? Oh, that was horrible. She really bombed. Number one, exaggerate the judgment. Meaning, I'm going to feed back to you something that is your judgment, basically, but I'm going to exaggerate it. Like if you're saying, boy, she really bombed, to exaggerate their judgment would be to say something like, wow, it sounds like you're saying that Mary is deliberately trying to sabotage her career and tarnish her image in front of her peers here. Something along those lines. And then number two, ask a closed-ended question to get them to acknowledge that judgment, because remember that judges like to polarize. And polarize means whatever judgment you make about me, you're wrong. I can judge everybody else, but I hate being judged. That's how judges are. You know, we're all like that. Whatever difficult behavior we exhibit, we hate it in others. And a judge, when you judge them, is going to say, no, 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 no. So if I were to say to that judge something such as, even if I wrapped it all into one statement, so are you saying that you think Mary's trying to deliberately sabotage her career and look like garbage in front of her peers? That judge is going to say, well, no, I mean, she wouldn't do that. And then you can simply respond with, I don't think so either. Or let's say that they were to make a judgment about your child, you know, and say, you let your child choose that hairdo? Or don't you think that dress is a little bit old for your daughter, a little revealing for your daughter? You know, if somebody's making a judgment like that, you know, say something such as, well, do you think my daughter is deliberately trying to attract male attention and look like a streetwalker? You know, no, I wouldn't say that. Do you think that my son wants people to think that he's an idiot or foolish? No, I don't think that. Or if somebody's judging, you know, a simple, anything about you, exaggerate it. You know, so do you think that XYZ, is that what you're saying? And remember, too, when you are making judgments, when you're exaggerating the judgment, and then they come back and say, because they will say, well, no, I'm not saying that, because they're going to polarize. That's when you either say, I don't think so either. And remember, as you are saying things like that, tilt your head forward, not to the side. Tilting your head to the side ruins the message. I don't think so either is going to send a strong, assertive message, and all you have to do at that point is give them the 3-second look. And the 3-second look is going to make anyone who was just called out on their behavior super uncomfortable. But you're not being aggressive. You're being assertive and direct in your communication. And they're not used to that. They don't like that. People don't like being called out on their behavior when they're being difficult. I mean, do you? And they will, again, find somebody else to engage with that behavior, find somebody else with whom they can engage in that behavior. Now, let's talk about the meddler. When you are dealing with a meddler, you know, somebody who is constantly giving you advice, do you really think that's the best career option? Do you really think that you should be working with so-and-so? Do you really think the meddler is somebody who meddles in your life? And you want to be very clear with the meddler. Step one, tell them what their behavior is and how it makes you feel. For example, let's say, I like to talk about our personal lives a lot. Let's say that the meddler is saying, do you think he's really right for you? Do you think that's a good boyfriend at this time in life? You know, let's say that you have somebody like that. When you judge me in my choice of mate, I feel frustrated and angry. Number two, you want to establish boundaries. And when you are dealing with a meddler, tell them what to do. You know, if you find somebody that you think would be an appropriate mate for me, shoot me an email with their name, number, and picture and profile, and I'll decide whether or not that's good for me. Or, you know, honey, do you think that that's work-appropriate clothing? When you talk about my clothing and judge me like that, I feel angry and frustrated because I've worked hard to develop my own personal style. If you see an outfit that you think would work for me, feel free to send me an Instagram or a picture or even the outfit, and then I can decide whether or not I want to incorporate that into my wardrobe. Now, that's telling somebody, when you do this, here's how I feel. When you when you interfere with my work, when you criticize my work, I feel frustrated because I take pride in my work and stand by my decisions. In the future, if you have a suggestion for me or something that you think would work better for me here at XYZ Corporation, feel free to tell me so in private so that I can consider it. And then remember to set up your signal. And in the future, once they've said, oh, okay, because you've told them not what not to do, but what to do. The meddler wants to meddle. Tell them, hey, if you have something to show me, send me an email. Tell me it in private. Tell me what to do. Show me the example, and I'll consider that. Tell them, I'll consider that, as long as you do it the way I'm telling you to do it. And then create a signal. Once you have agreed, okay, I'll do that, great. In the future, let's just say that this comes up again. Instead of making a big deal out of it, would you mind if I just talked about the weather and how it's snowing? And you can always say, oh, even if it's a hot summer day. I love summer days like this because it makes me forget that it ever snows here in Guadalajara. Once you come up with your signal, use your signals, because that's a very kind, I'm a big believer in kind communication. When someone is being unkind to me, that is my opportunity to develop my own strength of being kind back to them. If you, for example, in your personal compass, you write down, I am a kind communicator. I'm committed to being kind. I'm compassionate. I am courteous. Whatever you are going to find that all of a sudden in life, people are going to pop up challenging that. And they're going to say, oh, you think you're kind, huh? Let's see you be kind to me. And they'll be very unkind to you. That is about them. How you communicate with other people is about you. And remember that today what we're doing is I'm giving you very simple tools. We're talking about the judge and the meddler and boundary statements and danger phrases and power phrases. We're going to talk about scripting a little bit. And I have tons of free tools on my YouTube channel, I have a communication training membership site. I have tons of tools so that we can further this conversation. Because today I just wanted, those of you who feel as though you may be trapped in a negative environment, you can't solve that in 1 hour. We can start the process and the transformation here today. These types of tools, if you practice using them, will change your life, because all of a sudden you go from, I just don't know what to say, to, I know exactly what to say. And when your confidence changes, you change how you see the situation. And when you change how you see the situation, by definition, the situation has changed. It's all about how you see it. Let's talk about lead-in lines and closing lines. At the beginning, we talked about, for example, how I like to say to people, I need your help. Remember that when you open and close difficult conversations, where you need to address difficult behavior, because as of today, you are all on notice. You can no longer let the difficult behavior that brought you to this webinar continue. You cannot let it continue. If you do, it is about you. It is up to you to address it. Use signals, use power phrases, use scripting, use lead-in lines, use your personal compass, use whatever you can to stop it, or else it's about you. And if I need to address something, hey ladies out there, hey women, what is the number one phrase that you use at the beginning of a conversation when you want to address a man's difficult behavior? And that phrase, it's made up of 4 words, makes us go as soon as we hear it. What is it? Men? What is the phrase you hate to hear coming out of the mouths of women more than any other phrase? We need to talk, right? So remember, the way you set up a conversation or your lead-in line is crucial. It sets the whole tone for that conversation and either is going to open up the lines of communication or close them. Just as your closing line is crucial. It's going to get someone to agree and buy in, or it's going to make whatever message you just delivered fall flat. I'm going to give you a couple of lead-in lines to start conversations. Remember, don't say, come see me, don't say we need to talk, and don't start out talking about difficult behavior until you've set the tone. Lead-in line number 1, use the person's name, like Marsha, and I need your help. Say that out loud. I need your help. Marsha, I need your help. That's number 1. Number 2, I'm frustrated. Say that out loud. I'm frustrated. Or I'm concerned. I'm troubled. I'm, and then put an adjective after that. That's going to incorporate the 3 keys to lead-in lines. Key number 1 is you want to use I language. It's about me. I need your help. I'm frustrated. I'm troubled. I love to say I'm troubled because when you say to somebody, hey, Mark, I'm troubled, they're like, oh, my gosh, what's going on? Because no one ever says I'm troubled. But when you want to use I language, you want to use the person's name, and you want to make them short and sweet, and then put a pause. I'm frustrated. Pregnant pause. I'm concerned. Pregnant pause. A pregnant pause is a pause that's a little bit longer than a regular pause. Then deliver the message that you need to deliver because you've set the tone. And when you're done, close it correctly. You know, like a lot of times people will deliver a powerful message and they'll say, well, I wanted to make sure that, you know, we talked about this message, and now that we've talked about it, well, I'm glad we did, Dan. That's it. If you ever say that's it at the end of a powerful conversation, I'm going to come to you in an apparition and say, that's a danger phrase. You don't ever say danger phrase, or you don't ever use the danger phrase, that's it, at the end of a message. Like, you should never have to tell somebody, well, I'm done speaking, but that's all, folks. They should know by your closing line, because a good closing line, like a standard one. Let's say that I say, Marsha, I need your help. Yesterday you said XYZ in the conference room, and when you said that, it made me and other people uncomfortable because we've decided not to engage in that type of communication anymore. In the future, if you could leave that type of conversation to your personal life at home or any place outside of the office, then we can avoid ever having this conversation again. That could be a great positive for most people. We can avoid ever talking about this again. And now that I'm done, I'll say, can I count on you for that, Marsha? And when you say to somebody, can I count on you, what are they going to say? Yes, you can, especially after you just stunned them and slapped them in the face by giving them a clear, direct, assertive message, because nobody knows how to do that except you are going to know how to do that because we're talking about the tools. Remember that the number one closing line that you can use in conversations such as the one we just described, can I count on you? Say that out loud. Can I count on you? You can even use it all by itself. Marsha, can I count on you to leave that type of talk at home? Marsha, can I count on you to only talk about those who are present? Marsha, can I count on you to XYZ? That one phrase, even if somebody says, yeah, sure, and they're not wholeheartedly in it, simply saying yes has now increased the odds that their behavior will change simply because you got them to agree with it. And in the middle, like if you need some help with the message, you know, what do I put in between the Marsha, I need your help, and Marsha, can I count on you? I have 1 million freestyle scripts on my YouTube channel, for example. They're all free. And freestyle scripting helps you take the thoughts from your brain and get them out of your mouth. The number one freestyle script that I believe helps people for dealing with workplace negativity and negative chatter is the desk script. It's simple, it's to the point, it's clear. There are 4 steps to it. D-E-S-C. D, describe the exact behavior. Don't describe people. Describe behavior. E, what are the effects of that behavior? S, say what you want. Say how they should behave. And C, what are the consequences for them doing what you're asking them to do? Those, by the way, are positive consequences. For example, I'll put it all together. Marsha, I need your help. Today, when Susan wasn't present at lunch, you discussed the relationship she was having with her spouse. When you do things like that, it brings down not only the morale of the team, but it tarnishes your own professional image. In the future, if you could leave any type of communication that doesn't involve those present at home or some other place besides work, we would never have to have this conversation again, and you wouldn't need to worry about that tarnishing your reputation. Can I count on you for that, Marsha? Now that might not be the words you'd say. I was freestyling it using my freestyle script. Describe the behavior, describe the effects, say what you want, give some consequences, give a closing line. Can I count on you? Or will that work for you? Or can you do that for me? Remember that a closing line in situations like these should be a closed-ended question, a simple, get them to say yes. And then you're good to go. Because a lot of you here who are with me today, I know that you're thinking, oh, I hate having those types of talks, right? I hate them. I hate bringing up that type of behavior and addressing it. We all do. It's except for my sister-in-law, Michelle. She loves that. But most of us really don't like being assertive and calling people on their behavior. Scripting helps you be confident. Scripting helps you know, all right, even if I stumble over my words or I'm not, 100% clear with my message, as long as I stay on script, as long as I use these tools, I know I'm doing it right. And when you are confident knowing that you're going through the right steps, then your message is transformed because you are transformed. You're confident knowing, hey, wait a minute. Before, I may not have known what to do when somebody gossips or backstabs. Now I do. I say, Mark, I need your help. Here's exactly what you said. Here's the behavior you exhibited. Here's how that affected me or the team. Here's what I recommend you do in the future, and here's what you'll get out of that. Can I count on you to do that next time, Mark? And that's real quick, easy, simple. Whip the Band-Aid off, and you're done. Remember, if you don't address the behavior, that's about you. And an ICR, for example, is a very simple script. By the way, I know I'm going a little over. I'm about to get into our question and answer section. The ICR specifically addresses gossip or backstabbing. There are three things that you want to include in the message that you're delivering to someone when you're addressing their gossip or backstabbing. You know, John, I need your help. ICR, introduced, criticized, revealed. Say that out loud. Introduced, criticized, revealed. Say it again. Introduced, criticized, revealed. John, you just introduced Mark into our conversation and criticized him personally and revealed some private information about him to me. Was that your intent? Great closing line. Was that your intent? To let people get themselves off the hook. When you call people on their behavior and you say, was that what you meant to do? Was that your intent? People will at that point say, no, I didn't mean to. Thanks for giving me the heads up. I apologize. I didn't mean to gossip. But remember, you don't have to give the whole ICR. You can give just an IC. Mark, you just introduced John into our conversation and criticized him personally. Was that your intent? Or, Mark, you can give him an IR. Mark, you just introduced John into this conversation and revealed some private information about him to me. You could just give them an I. Mark, you just introduced John into this conversation. Were you intending to do that? He's not present. The ICR, those are the three things that gossipers or backstabbers tend to do that you want to call them out on. They introduce people into the conversations, they criticize them, and they reveal information. Get used to being clear and direct when you call them out on that behavior in, by the way, as you noticed, a kind, gentle way that lets them get themselves off the hook with a simple, was that your intention? And remember, I talked about dog clickers. That's the dog clicker that I was talking about. You can get them at PetSmart or Petco or whatever you want. They're like $1.99 at the impulse checkout aisle, and if everybody has them, that could be used as your signal. If somebody's engaging in behavior and you find it difficult to use these scripts we're talking about, just give them a click, 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 and then everybody knows, whoops, that's my heads up. I'm engaging in difficult behavior. That may sound strange if you haven't done it. Transformational if you have. Transformational. And the last thing I want to do as we're wrapping up here is talk about there are three questions that you want to use when you're assessing your environment. If you're in management, if you're the leader, if you're the team lead, there are three questions you must ask everybody. Because remember, especially if you are a team leader, if you are experiencing negativity at work, that really is about you. You are in charge of that team, and you can stop it and transform that environment. Ask your team members, what do you think is the biggest challenge our department faces regarding negativity and negative communication here at work? And be prepared to be completely silent when people reveal what they think is the biggest challenge. This is not time for you to discuss or give any feedback. This is simply information gathering. Number two, how do I contribute to this problem, and what do you think I can do to help solve it? And remember, this is not the time for you to speak. The only time we should be speaking when we're asking people these questions is at the time we ask the questions. Other than that, we sit back and listen. And number three, how do you contribute to this problem, and what do you think you can do to help solve it? If you ask every team member that set of questions. Now remember, if you are a manager or not, if you are here on this call because you want to make that change, because you are in control and in charge of every relationship in your life, and because you set the tone in your department, which you do, if you simply ask those three questions, that's going to everybody. That's going to get people to feel as though they are being heard and listened to in this process that you're engaging in of transformation. And remember, that is the number one thing that's going to get their buy-in, simply feeling as though they were heard. And then to take corrective action. Once you've sat down, you process all this information. Remember, you want to assess your environment. We just talked about that. You want to, number two, communicate verbally. We've talked about many tools here, and I don't think there's enough time left in the world for you to go through all of the tools that I have on YouTube, on my website, DanO'ConnorTraining.com, on the paid membership site. There's not enough time in the world. Find the verbal tactics that work for you, because for any situation in which you find yourself struggling, there is a solution out there. There is an answer. There is something that will help you. If the first one doesn't work for you, try another, try another, try another, try another. Communicate visually. Remember, visual cues are key. One of the things I suggest is taking some of the tools that you have found helpful, if it's the ICR, if it's the desk script, if it's the mirror, if it's the judge, take those and place them around at work. Place them around so that other people can master those skills as well and be reminded, oh, I can say things like that. Number 4, recognize the signs of unwanted behavior. I think most of us recognize the signs of unwanted behavior, but the challenge is we don't do anything. When you recognize a sign, what are you going to do? We can communicate visually. We can communicate verbally. We can use a signal like a dog clicker. You can do anything you want, but you have to take action and address that unwanted behavior. And then, number 6, repeat the process, because this is an ongoing process, of course. If you're deciding to make this change, probably people will be right on board with you until tomorrow, because tomorrow's Friday. Then they'll come back on Monday, and they'll have forgotten about what you did. Repeat the process. Keep it going. I have seen companies go from hellholes to work in, people literally getting sick because they have to come into work and deal with so much negativity, to the most prosperous, beautiful places I've ever seen. And you can make that change because you are in charge of that relationship. I'd like to thank everybody so much. Now, as I have promised, I'm going to be taking Q&A for almost half an hour. So let me know what questions you have. Operator, I'm going to turn it back to you, because if you have any verbal questions that you'd like to ask, I know that some people are going to be saying, who is going to ask it? Are you going to ask it? Who's going to ask it? So take your time, gather some questions, and let the operator know what your questions are. It is now time to do that. Right, operator?
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, if you have dialed in and would like to ask a verbal question, press 7# on your phone now. You'll be placed in the queue in the order received. Just listen for your name to be announced and be prepared to ask your question when prompted. You can also continue to send questions using the chat window located to the left of the presentation screen. Just type your message in the rectangular input field and press Enter to send it.
Okay, I got a question while you're getting yours ready. By the way, operator, are you going to let me know when there's a verbal question?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Reba, hi Reba. Reba from Dallas. Reba has a question. Oh, I remember you like it was yesterday, if it's the Reba I'm thinking of. How can a new manager integrate this program with past peers? Here's the key, Reba. This is the key. For the new manager to sit down with their peers, the ones the ones that they're, oh, wait a minute. When you say a new manager with past peers, do you mean these were all my peers, and now all of a sudden I'm the manager of the people who used to be my peers? If that's what you mean, that is really tricky. So that is when, especially, the process that you're going to use, that's when the new manager who used to be peers with these people has to really say, hey, everybody, I need your help. You know, as you all know, yada, yada, yada. So I think the key is going to be the way that it's set up. Meaning, not coming and saying, hey, everybody, I got a great solution. We're all going to do X, Y, Z. No. Instead, hey, everybody, I need your help. I've been asked, I know that a lot of you have struggled with negativity at work and the gossip or backstabbing, and I have been asked to spearhead a program to help everybody, and I really need everybody's help, everybody's input. And then during the process, again, it's crucial that, for example, I think that the number one thing that will help that manager with the people who used to be his or her peers is that first session where you sit down during the creation of a personal compass, and you make it not about, I'm going to tell you what our personal compass is, but I'm going to remain nearly silent, and I would like you all to tell me what our compass is, and I'm basically going to be the transcriptionist here because I'm here to help. And if during that initial session that new manager projects the message not only in her actions or his actions, but in her words or his words, I want you all to know my role as a manager is to help and support and serve. I'm here to serve you, not the opposite, and not the other way around, and I'm aware of that. So the first thing that I'm going to do to serve the team is I've been asked to help kind of set a new tone or set an additional tone in terms of communication, but that other people participate in that process is the number one thing that will help them be okay with the process. So that's going to be the biggest thing, Reba, is that they first of all say, hey, I need everybody's help. And then during that first session, it's not about the manager, let's say, leading them. It's going to be about the manager listening to the team. And I think that also that questionnaire, or the 3 questions that we talked about at the end, let me see where they are. Those 3 questions. Yes, those 3 questions, if the new manager just sits and asks them and provides absolutely no feedback other than, asking the 3 questions and thank you so much for helping me, that's going to make such a huge difference. Because I think, one of the biggest challenges that we face when we're in that position is we're starting to manage our peers, and they're resistant to that because they're thinking, hey, you were my friend, and you think that you're better than me now? You think you know more than I do? I started before you do, that type of thing. If the new manager takes a very humble approach and simply says, I'm here to serve, and I'm very grateful to be able to do it, and I'm going to start by asking you to tell me everything that I do to contribute to your misery, to criticize me first, that's a great way to break the ice, set the tone that I'm not here to dictate, I am truly here to serve. So that is my suggestion. Number 1, remember the I need your help Leadin Lines. Number 2, have them before anything else happens, have them participate in, let's say, a lunch and learn, where you sit down for lunch and you have the employees make the personal compass. And at the end of that lunch and learn, maybe, is when I suggest the manager asks those 3 questions to everybody on his or her team. Great, thanks, Reba. Okay, any phone questions, operator?
Yes, Denny has a question.
Okay. Did you say Denny?
Yes, Denny.
Hi.
Great. Hi. Hey, Denny.
So we're calling from Los Alamos County.
Hey, how are you, Los Alamos County? Hey! Oh, the land of enchantment.
So when you see the closing lines, some of us are not liking, can I count on you? Because it could sound a little phony or like a directive or even sarcastic.
Okay. So you want some others?
Do you have any?
Yes. Things such as any closed-ended question. And, I'm glad that you brought that up. Is it Jenny? Am I saying that right?
No, it's Denny with a D like David.
Thanks, Denny. Yes. Any time that we talk about specific phrasing in any of my lessons, just to make it clear to everybody out there, the words and phrases that I might use might not be for you. They might not be of your taste. They might not sound good coming out of your mouth. So I always customize that. The key to a good closed-ended question is closing line is a closed-ended question. And so anything that just is going to get them to say either, yes, I can do that for you, or no, that won't be a problem, is going to be great. For example, it could even be, is that going to be a problem, or would that work for you? Do you think that could work? Any type of closed-ended question. What we don't want to do, Denny, is sometimes at the end, people will say things like, so what do you think about that? Or how do you feel about that? And we're asking an open-ended question, which can very easily take the momentum of our conversation and throw it totally off course, because all of a sudden, that's not the time to get your thoughts on the issue. So if you think a good closed-ended question for you might be something like, would that work for you? Or do you think that could work for us? Or do you need anything from me to make this happen? Whatever would sound good and natural and sincere coming from you, the number one key is you want to use a closed-ended question. Or, just as a little caveat, Denny, I know that there are different scripts for different situations. If you, for example, came to me, Denny, and you were normally a very cheery person, and all of a sudden you're crying at work and you seem all out of sorts, I'm not just going to give you a simple, hey, Denny, here's your behavior, here's how it was wrong, here's how you need to change it, and here's what you'll get out of that. Capiche? I might say at the end, I might give you a tell me what's been going on question. I might give you a, what are you feeling these days? What has changed? I might give you one of that. This is simply for the quick kind of behavior correction, closed-ended closing line.
Okay, thank you.
You bet, Denny. Any other questions out there from Los Alamos?
Hey, coming back. Yeah, we would like you here in person.
What?
We would like to have you here in person.
I would like to be there in person. Los Alamos, as you all know, has my heart. So if you're all on the phone, just so you know, I can't cheat on my number one city. It's Los Alamos. I'm sorry for the others. I hope to see you soon, but they're still my number one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. I hope to see you soon. Anybody, operator, are there more online calls?
Not at this time.
Oh, great. Then anybody else? I thought I was keeping somebody maybe on hold unintentionally, by the way, when I said, oh, great. Anybody else have any questions that they'd like to write in or call in? Take your time because we've got some time still.
Participants can press 7# on their phone to queue to participate in the conversation.
Okay, while you're coming up with any more questions, I know we still have some time, and this is kind of new for me that I have the ability to do this visual here. So I wanted to show you something, and it's a great body language strategy. Some of us Denny, what you just said reminded me of this. Let's say that I am a manager or a supervisor, and I need to ask you what's been going on. I'm asking you a question, and I really want to get the answer. I want to know. I'm concerned with your behavior. I'm preparing to move this camera back a little bit. Okay. If all of a sudden I disconnect, I apologize. Okay, where are we here? Okay. Ready? Okay, there we go. That was easier than I thought. Okay, so let's say that I'm here at my desk, I'm talking to another person. Remember that visual communication is key. Visual communication barriers, or visual barriers, create communication barriers. And often what we do as communicators unwittingly is, our job as a supervisor manager really is, so much of it is being a counselor. I mean, I can't remember what the statistic was, but it was something like 50% of our job as managers or supervisors is really in the role of a counselor. And many times when we have to sit and counsel our employees and talk about their problems, we'll start off having stuff in front of us. And look at how all of a sudden everything's changed when I have things in front of me. Remember, when you remove physical barriers, you remove communication barriers as well. And then it helps me set up. Watch this. I'm going to put you on voice here. When I ask a question, remember, ask questions with your whole body because we are visual communicators. A lot of us do this. Mary, really, tell me what's been going on with you lately. And when we say to somebody, well, what's been going on? We're sitting back listening for the answer. We've done absolutely everything the opposite way from how we're supposed to do it, but that's common. So remember, when you ask a question, lean forward and give people a palms up like this. Start off actually sitting back. Mary, I just don't understand. What's been going on with you lately? And when you do that, in the process of asking your question, at the end of it, when you lean forward a bit and give a palms up, and then place yourself on the table, position yourself leaning towards them, you're truly asking a question that sends a message that says, I'd like to hear what you have to say. As opposed to most of us, what's been going on? And we do this, we're sending the opposite message. And remember that whether we're aware of it or not, we send or we pick up most of our communication subconsciously, and we kind of judge what people are really thinking or what they really want to know based on visual communication. Most of the this is a question from Kathy. Hey, Kathy. Most of the communication is based upon history of the relationship. How do you erase the past and move forward? Kathy, I just want to, I swear, Kathy, hold on a minute. You got me. Hold on a minute. Kathy just asked one of the best questions I think I've gotten in a long time. She said, most of the negativity is based upon history of the relationship. How do you erase the past and move forward? Kathy, I think it's the same whether we are talking about our romantic relationships, our work relationships, our professional relationships, our relationships with our customer. You're absolutely right, because we create patterns in our brain. Our brain starts to think, okay, this happened, here's how we dealt with it. This happened, here's how we dealt with it. And once those patterns get established in our brain, they are difficult to break. Here's what I recommend, Kathy. Remember this, navigational phrases. So everybody say this out loud. Navigational phrases. Say it again. Navigational phrases. Navigational phrases are used to change direction in a conversation or in a relationship. And what I'd like you to do is, since we're such visual communicators, think of when we drive a car, the type of things that we need to do. We'll need to stop. We'll need to back up. We'll need to go forward. We need to change direction. We need to make a U-turn. We sometimes lose control. All of those things, we need to slow down. We need to speed up. All of those things that we do when we drive a car, we do when we are managing our relationships, right? And it's difficult sometimes for us when we find ourselves in the situation where we realize, as you just said, our problems that we have is at this point is going to be based on our past history. So what do we do to move forward? Use navigational phrases. When you sit down with people and you say things such as, pretend you're driving the car, and that's your communication vehicle, and you say things such as, Kathy, I really don't know how we got here, and I apologize. Start off by apologizing. I apologize because I think I got a little bit lost. I think this, or, something such as, I think this relationship unfortunately went off track and went in the wrong direction. So then use more navigational phrases. What would you do if that happened? Kathy, I would really appreciate it if we could stop where we are here, back up, change direction, and start anew, go in a completely different direction in this relationship. What we first need to do, of course, is say that today I forgive you for everything and you forgive me for everything. I'm just asking you to forgive me. And if we could stop here and change direction and go another path, I would be very grateful. Can we do that? Do you think we can do that? Do you think we can change direction together so that we can get to where we need to go? When you're having those types of conversations, it's difficult. When you talk about specific visual language, like, can we back up? Can we change direction? And bring it on yourself as much as you can. I got lost. I don't know how we got here. But if we can stop and change direction, I think that we can make this relationship work. Can we give it a chance? Can you work with me so that we can try that together? At first, when we want to change directions, of course, I always bring that on myself. I have to remember, I'm just taking for granted that we all know the number one rule that we talked about here, I am in charge of every relationship. And so even if I'm not thinking that it's my fault that this relationship went off track, when we say things such as, if I think this relationship is broken down and it's doomed, I might say to you, Kathy, I want to apologize. I have let this relationship go off track, and I don't really know when it started, but I know, as you know, that we have gone in the wrong direction. So what I'm hoping you'll help me do is stop and change direction so that we can both find our way to a new, healthier relationship. But to do that, we have to forget the past, and I want to ask your forgiveness, that you could forgive me for everything that I have done. I've already forgiven you for anything that you may or may not have done, because my number one concern is that we change direction and get to where we both need to go. Do you think we could do that? So whatever words work best for you, Kathy, I have found that navigational phrases help steer relationships back on track, because it helps give us kind of a frame. Like, how do I say that? How do I bring it up? Pretend that you're in your car. Help, I'm lost, don't know how I got here, would you please help? And remember, men will never do this, Kathy. We won't. So if you have found that you're lost in a relationship and there are men on board, you have to be the one to stop and do that, because we don't stop and ask for directions. We just don't. That's your job. So I hope that helps, Kathy. Do we have any other questions on hold, operator?
Yes, we do. Melissa has a question.
Hey, Melissa, what's up?
We were just wondering if there is any benefit of doing the assessments by email if you weren't able to meet with each individual face-to-face.
Thank you, Melissa. Not only is that an optional way to do it, that's also something that I would recommend, or that I do recommend, that people do whether or not you can meet face-to-face. So thank you, Melissa. I should have brought that up because, as you probably know, some people aren't comfortable revealing everything that they should reveal when asked face-to-face. So absolutely, you can do it face-to-face if you can, and then say, I will be sending you a follow-up email in case anything else comes up that you may want to add to this. And if you can't start the conversation in person, then absolutely you can do it by email because you will get a lot of honesty through an email. However, just as a caveat, please don't be offended or sad or whatever when you read the emails coming to you, because in an email, people are going to say things or write things that they may not say in person, and it's not about you. It's about the person writing it, but it's going to sound harsh because it's intended to be generally criticism, and don't take it personally when you read them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Any other questions, operator?
I'm going to check in with Denny to see if they have queued a second time. One moment.
Okay.
Hi, it's us again at Los Alamos County.
Hey, by the way, I meant to ask you, is it Denny like the song, Denny, or is it Denny?
It's Denny. As in Denise is my full name.
Oh, okay, so it is Denny. Okay, good. Okay, what's up?
So unfortunately, we don't have a visual of you. So what?
Oh, boy, you're missing out.
I know. We're all imagining, visualizing you in our own minds. But what can you do with your hands when you're leaning forward talking to someone? It's a little awkward for some of us. Me sometimes, what to do with my hands. Put them in my pockets. Not put them on our hips, obviously, or across our arms, but in order to appear open and willing to listen and not come off as closed or defensive.
Okay, great. I'll answer that in two different ways. There are, if you're standing up, the most, the posture that projects the most confidence of all postures surveyed is when you clasp your hands behind your back. It projects the image of totally honest, totally open, and totally confident. When like some people will clasp their hands behind their back as they stand there. And it's true. I didn't really know about this until I started researching it. It makes your chest stick up a little bit. Your hands are held behind you. People will perceive you as being open and honest and truthful. You can also clasp your hands in front of you as if kind of your elbows flop where they normally would flop, and then you hold your hands almost as if you're praying and you clasp your hands. You can do that, and that will set you up, by the way, as you're speaking, to give people the steeple. So as you're speaking, if your elbows are falling as they normally would, and your hands are clasped, then as you're saying something, if you really want to emphasize a point, you can put your fingers up, finger points together and up, like you're making the steeple, and you gently point them forward as you say it, like, I believe that's the best direction to go in. And you give somebody the steeple and you tilt it forward a little bit. That's going to actually add more power and credibility to your message. If you're sitting down at a desk, the best thing to do, if you don't know what to do with your hands, is place your elbows on the desk, although, Miss Etiquette says you can't do that at the dinner table. We're not at the dinner table. Put your elbows in front of you on the desk, clasp your hands and plant them on the table, and also, again, then when you have a point you want to emphasize, you can put your fingertips high and up and give people the steeple and slightly tilt it forward as you say it, and that will emphasize your point.
Well, thank you.
Oh, cool.
You're welcome. It's so great to hear from you guys. And I apologize. I know that I went over, and our time is all up. If anybody on this line has another question, has anything at all that they need from me, please send me an email to Dan. You can just go to DanO'ConnorTraining.com. I think that would be the easiest because it's on the bottom. Let me even see if I actually put this on at the end. DanO'ConnorTraining.com or at Dan@PowerDiversity.com. There you go. There you have my best emails. If anybody wants to email me or call or has a question or needs additional training or materials, we have a new store, by the way, so check out the store if you haven't been there.